Hey, last time we did a tutorial on, one second, let me just go ahead and unhit play here. Last time we did a tutorial on the main menu scene over here. And I made us a little demo game screen title. You could hit start. You could hit options. Options would go to menu, back and forth, but there's nothing, no real options in there yet. And, I'm going to drag this onto here. And, it's just a little demo game homepage. Now we're actually going to make our actual game. So to start with, I made some terrain. And here, let me go ahead and just delete this out of here, but also delete this so I can show you how to make some terrain. You can go under game object, you go under 3D object, and you go to terrain. And that'll create one square of terrain. Let's go ahead and make this 0. And yeah. So you can add more terrain by hitting this right here. There is under terrain, there is an add create neighbor terrains. So if I wanted to add this, I click, make myself some more terrain over here. I can also paint the terrain higher and lower. So right now I can really only go higher because the terrain's right here. So if I hit shift to go lower, you see I can make these lower, but none of this will go lower. So and you see that kind of looks like mountains right there. So that's how that works. But we can actually go under something under this called set height, and I can go ahead and set like a value like 300, and I can flatten all of these. So now if I paint on this with raise or lower, I can actually raise this up, or you see I can lower this down without having to raise it up first, which is nice. That way you can actually get some difference in your surface. Also, there's this right here, which is the opacity. So this determines the strength of which you see it's going up slower than it did before, as when I had it right here. I didn't have to do much, and you see it makes giant mountains really quick. You can also go ahead and do smooth height. So say this was going to be more like a hill or like a hilly area. I can go ahead and smooth the height here, smooth it down, and then it's more of a hilly looking shape, less of a jagged mountainy looking thing. So these are just some of the different things that you can go ahead and do. And you can also paint a texture in here as well. So you can do more than just paint. You can actually paint textures. If you want to get textures, you can actually go under the asset store and type in, besides ones that you make yourself, but you can actually type in like terrain, like their terrain textures, and I could go ahead and download a free terrain texture pack or something like that, and you can go ahead and do that, but I'll let you guys figure that out on your own. So now we're going to go to this player. So for the player, all I did was I set the player, I created a game object, and I just created a capsule. And then on that capsule, you're going to go ahead and add a, I'll go ahead and remove it. You're going to go ahead and add a character controller. And you can go ahead and remove the capsule collider, I believe. And then we're going to go ahead and remove. We're going to go ahead and put the camera, and you can take the camera and just parent it to the player, or make it a child of the player. And so now we can go ahead, and you're going to want to, if I hit play, you'll see we can see there's this scene right out there in front of us. Actually, to make it a little more distinct, let's go ahead, that way we can see what's going on. Let's go ahead and raise or lower the terrain. Something like right there. So now when we hit play, we'll see a mountainy area in front of us. And then actually, let's do beside that, let's go ahead and add a little divot. And then let's go ahead and smooth the height of that divot. There we go. So now in front of us there's a mountain and a crater. There we go. Just so you can see there's something in front of us when we start the game. Now for the scripts, we're going to go ahead, and I made 2 scripts. They don't have anything in them right now. You can go ahead and see this is player movement and this is player look. So they're currently empty, but all I did was right click, create, and C# script, and that made these 2 scripts, and I just named them player look and player movement. We can go ahead and start with the player look. We're just going to drag that onto the camera. We can go ahead and start right here though. So to start with, we're going to have to get our camera, or not our camera, we're going to have to get our mouse inputs. So what we're going to go ahead and do is under the update, or you can make another void function, call it something like, what should we call it? We can do one for X rotation. We'll have this handle the X mouse input. So we'll do float mouse X equals input dot, and we can do get, and then we do get access. Ooh, there we go, get access, and we're gonna go ahead and do since this is X, we're gonna do mouse X, and X is gonna go left to right. So multiply that by time.delta time, and then we can multiply it by a random number like 50 or something. So we can go ahead and create actually like a sensitivity variable, so just a little float for mouse sensitivity, and set that equal to like, I don't know, 50 or something, and we'll just multiply that by sense right there. Or not sense, wrong type of sense, sense, there we go. And then we can go ahead, and after that we're going to want to rotate our player left and right. So we're going to have to get access to our player, because we're going to want to move more than, if we're going to go to our player, you're going to want to move more than just the camera. You're probably going to want to rotate your whole player's body left and right. So what we're going to actually go ahead and need to do is we're going to have to get something to reference the player's transformation. So we're going to do, and we're going to have to make this one public. Public transform player body. And the reason why, we can just call it player, or player, yeah, player body, it's fine. We'll get a reference to our player body, and we have our little capsule here. We named it player, and we have our script right here, but we don't have it doing anything. We're gonna have to drag the transform of that into there, and because we're just getting a reference to it. So now that we have our reference to our transformations of our player body, we can actually go here and we can do player body, and we can rotate it. And we're going to rotate it by rotate it by the vector 3. And what we're going to do actually for this is we're going to do dot up. So what dot up is, it's like creating a vector 3 with the values 0, 1, 0 in it. It would be like that. It's just a shorthand for that. That's what vector 3 is. Or vector 3 dot up. There's other ones as well, like vector 3, I think it's like right, stuff like that. But we're gonna go ahead and do mouse X right there, and we're gonna multiply that by mouse X, and that will be rotating our player left and right. And we're gonna go ahead and put this in our update function, because this is handling all of our X rotation stuff right here. And we're going to go ahead and show that this works now. So this should work. We can look left. We can look right. If I don't maximize this on play, I can actually hit play, and then we can go to the scene here, and we can click on our player. And when we do our, or we can go to our player. And when we're doing this, you can see over here that the rotation is changing of our actual player's body. So that's how you can tell that the actual player is moving, not just the camera. Now, we're not going to want to rotate our player, though, for looking up and down. So we'll actually do a void, and we'll do look up. Now, this one's going to be a little different. We're also going to need to get access to a mouse, but this time we're going to need to get access to the Y. We'll call this one float mouse Y. And it's basically going to be the same snippet right here, except for we're changing that to Y. Do I have an insert? Yeah, I did. So then we're just changing that to that. So float mouse Y, and it's just getting the input of Y instead. And we could actually do, say you're making player, say when we make our player options that we made the thing for previously, I can do a sense X and a sense Y. And that will allow us to make it different, because some players like a different X and Y sensitivity. And so we'll go ahead and do, I guess, 50 for both of them right now. Keep them pretty even. But after that, we're going to need to create another variable in here. And this is going to be another float. And we're just going to store our rotation in here, our mouse Y rotation. And we'll call it X rotation, or X rot. And we'll set it equal to 0 to start with. Now under here, we're going to do X rot minus equals our mouse Y. And the reason why we're doing negative is because if we did positive, it's inverted. And then we're going to want to go this dot transform dot local rotation. And we're going to set that equal to our criterion dot Euler, because we're going for an angle. And see, it's got the float X, float Y, float Z. That's going to be our 3 right there. And what we're going to do here is X rot, because that's why we did it for X rotation. You see we're putting it in the X, the float X. And then we're going to do 0 and 0. And close that off. Click save. We should be able to look up and down now. Oh, I spelled transform wrong. Transform. Sorry about that. Now, when we look, we should be able to, we should not be able to look up and down because I didn't do up. Now we're calling it in our update function. See, we're going to look up, we're going to look down, we're going to look all around. But there's one problem here. We can look all the way around. All the way around. That's not very natural. So what we're going to go ahead and do to fix that is we're actually going to clamp our X rotation. And the only way to do that is to do X rot. And we're going to set that equal to mathf. Mathf calls all of your different math functions. And you see, because we can do like absolute value, a cosine, lerp, stuff like that. Clamp, and we're going to clamp swing. We're going to clamp itself to, I'm going to do, I think, about -60 and 60 degrees. And the reason why I'm going to do both of those is I don't want them to be able to look up too far and too far down, too far up. I feel like that's a pretty good range of look there. See, that's pretty good. We can almost look all the way down to our feet, but not quite. So maybe even like 75. That looks pretty good. So now we can look everywhere, but we can't do anything other than that. And also, something else that if it bugs you, you can see my cursor on the screen. There's a way to disable that. So we can actually make a void toggle cursor function. And so to toggle our cursor, we'll do if, let's do if cursor visible. Visible. Then we're going to set our cursor to invisible. Cursor dot visible, and we'll set that equal to false. And then we'll go ahead and take our lock state and we'll set that's dot lock mode. Wait, no, it's cursor lock mode. And dot locked. There we go. So if our cursor is visible and we call toggle cursor, our cursor will become invisible. Let's actually make this public too in case I want to ever call it again, because I might call it from other scripts as well. So if our cursor is visible, we're going to set our cursor to invisible and lock it. Otherwise, or else, we're going to set it equal to, we'll just copy this over. Just go ahead and copy that over, and we're going to set that equal to true. And we'll go ahead and set none. And we're going to copy it one more time. And we'll set it to confined. It's being a little cautious. You probably just could set it equal to confined, but I just want to make sure because sometimes I get some weird things when I don't take that extra step there. And actually, when we start this, we're just going to go ahead and toggle cursor to start. Go ahead in here. Bam, now our cursor is invisible, but see, we can't escape now. All you have to do is click escape in Unity, and it'll pop the cursor right back up. And you can do it again. False, cursor select state, cursor lock mode locked. Okay, cool. So now that we've gotten this done, we're going to go ahead and move to our next step, which is actually letting our player traverse this nice world that we made. So since we put a character controller on it, you could also do this with a rigid body. So a rigid body is another option. It handles physics for you, but I like this because it actually handles steps and stuff like that. That's the thing that I find really cool about it. And you won't have to code any of that stuff. So what we're going to go ahead and do for our player is we're going to go ahead and go to this player movement that I made, and we don't have this set up yet. So you'd create a script, put it in here, and oh, oops, that's player look. Player movement, sorry. Boop. I'm going to put player movement in there. So now we're going to want to handle our player's movement. And to do so, we'll go in here and we'll create a void. We'll call it movement. So then we're going to have to call our movement in our update. Next, we're going to have to think about how we're going to be moving our player. So we're going to have to get it on 2 axes, but we're going to actually do this on a horizontal and a vertical axis. So we're going to go ahead and get a float for our X and a float for Z. I'm going to float for z, but this time we're going to set them equal to input dot get access raw. Now I'm going to use raw because if I use get access, the player movement will slowly come to a stop in each direction. I want it to come to a stop instantaneously, which that's going to do a little bit of a difference between raw and get access. Gosh darn it. My keyboard's off to the side all the time while I'm doing these tutorials, so it's actually really hard to type. Get access raw. And so one of them is going to be, the z is going to be vertical, and this one's going to be horizontal. So we did vertical and horizontal. So now that we've got both of those in place, those will get the inputs. We're going to have to move our character. Now, since we're moving it with a controller, we're actually going to have to get our controller. And since we attached it to our player, we're actually going to have to get a reference to it. So what we're going to do is do character controller. We'll name it controller, just to be easy, but we're actually going to have to get access to it. So we'll type controller, and then we'll set that equal to get component. No, it's not dot. This time we'll do this. And the component we're going to get is character controller. Think that'll work. I hope that'll work. And then we can go ahead dot move. To make this easier, we're actually going to go ahead and we'll go ahead and make a vector 3 for move. We'll call it move. Oops. Think this will work. Transform.right, and right's going to be our horizontal. So we'll multiply that by x and transform dot forward, and we'll multiply that by our z. So the reason why this works is that it's using local. These are actually using local compared to like vector 3.forward and stuff like that, which uses which is not local. And then it's basically not actually like we're adding these two together. It's well, it is kind of like we're adding these, but we're adding like vector 3s together. We're not adding it's not adding these as one value that goes into here. It's like some value, something like that. That's why that works. And we're gonna go ahead and go under move, and now we can actually call this controller.move. Call move. We'll do it dot normalized. Move dot normalized. So normalized, that's actually going to return a 1. So whatever direction you're going in, it's going to return a vector of 1 in that direction. And we'll multiply this by time dot delta time. We're also probably going to want to move at a certain speed. So like I think that'll move on its own, but Might be kind of slow. Yeah, see, that's really slow. We can move wherever we want. It's just really slow. You see, we can move left and right too. So let's actually make a let's make a float. Call it m speed. We'll set it equal to 6. So that'll be 6 times faster than we were going. What? Oh, oops. M speed. I forgot to actually put that in. See, now we can go ahead and move around, which is pretty cool. It's not too bad. Following this, so we've got our movement here. We can actually go ahead and move around, but oh, I'll go ahead and show you one of the problems. But another problem we're going to have is, I'm going to solve 2 problems. If we walk over this little divot, we could just walk over this little divot. So if we used a rigid body, we'd just be falling right now. Or, well, we could check gravity and then we would be falling. But since we're using this character controller, what I can go ahead and do is I can actually make a gravity. But before that, I actually want to be able to modify the speed, because sometimes you don't want just a walking speed. So what we can go ahead and do is we can actually create a go ahead and go under here, and if input dot get key we can do key code dot left shift, and if we're holding left shift, let's go ahead and make m speed equal to 12, double the speed, and otherwise we'll go ahead and make m speed equal to 6 like it normally is. So now this is going to do is, oh, sorry, if I'm moving around, I hold shift, I'm not holding shift. So it gives me a movement speed as well. And now we can go ahead and make something separate for our, we can go ahead and make something called something like void gravity. And so what we're going to want to do is we're going to want to create we're going to want to create another vector 3. And we'll name it yeah, we'll just name it gravity. Vector 3 gravity. Now we're going to go ahead and come down here. And let's see. We'll do gravity dot y plus equals, let's do like 30, no, 16. Let's do like 16. We'll do 16 time dot delta time. Bob. And that should go ahead, and that should be gravity. And now we're actually going to have to change. We're going to have to go back to our whoa, what happened? Oh, there we go. Actually, I'm actually going to move this to the start here, to the start function. because I don't need to be getting what controller it is over and over again. I was just realizing that. But now back to this, we're going to do our controller dot move. And we're going to go ahead and we're going to actually do the gravity this time. Gravity. Pop. And, oh yeah, let's actually do this too. Time that delta time. That should go ahead and work. Player movement already. Oh yeah. Let's call it gravity back. My bad. Can't name things the same thing. Let's go ahead and see if this works now. I believe we should fall. Huh? No, we do not fall. It's because we have to actually call our gravity. Now we have called gravity. Now we should fall. We're falling upward. It's because I did plus equals. There we go. Now we should fall down. There we go. So now we can fall downwards. We have a gravity, we have player movement, and let me see how long this tutorial is getting because it might be in a little too long. So we're at like 30 minutes. So I have gravity. You can look left and right. I showed some terrain editing. We have player movement in here. I'd like to add some more stuff about maybe jumping and stuff like that, but I think I'll cut the tutorial here for now because this is already getting pretty long. I don't want to go 30-minute tutorial, but so we already have to where we can make gravity work and everything. We have our player movement. We had to make gravity because we didn't use a rigid body. If you use a rigid body, you see they have a little use gravity function anyway and built in, but I like the for this tutorial and for this game, I think I'm going to do a character controller because I like being able to walk up steps and stuff like that. So if I go ahead and make a cube, let's scale it to 0.2. Oops. Right there. Just move it closer to our player. Whoa. Go into my scene view. See, I'm actually standing on that. I find that really cool. So, oops, I accidentally put this over here. That's what I was trying to do. Let's put these side by side. Whoa. There we go. I just think that's really neat. So it can be used to go up steps and stuff like that. But I'm in this tutorial here because next time I'll do jumping. We'll add to where you can jump. We'll check for the ground. And maybe I'll do like a little puzzle game or something like that. Anyway, that's it for this tutorial. Catch you all later. By the way, I'm using SlickEdit. Definitely feel free to give it a shot. It's really good on Mac. It's pretty much the only thing you can use on Mac, really. And but on Windows, it works pretty well too. And I think you should probably give it a shot. Anyway, peace out. Have a good day.